Welcome back, South Philly Sauce and Audacy Original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. Ashlyn, Sullivan, Al Morganti here from Flyers Practice. Only a couple games left for this Flyers season. I believe this might be the last practice.
This probably is the last practice, and it's a long haul. Yeah. So, I mean, you got to just find your highlights where you can right now. Like, it's your birthday week last week, right? So,
it was a highlight.
So, yeah.
But now it's not about me any longer.
No, it's always about you.
I know.
I know. When I go around town, they don't ask about Scott Hartnell.
Yes, they do.
They ask about you and your dog.
George is a celebrity.
Yeah,
well.
So happy birthday. I'm sure.
Thank you. We know it's all about Scott Hartnell.
It's all
you know that.
It is. So, but he was at least he saw a little bit of uptick in the power play a little bit. So maybe he was a little happy about that. Everybody was a little bit happy. But just going into this last week, you mentioned going to the last practice. You can just tell, just going in the locker room, it's like it's like this season is 182 games. That's what it feels like now as you're going through the end. It's just, you got to get through it. But the energy level.
Enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I mean, just to go to practice and see what's going, like, what you ask yourself, why? You're getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
You want to make an impression. But boy, I'll tell you, when you're out of it and the teams you're playing are out of it, you don't care about draft stuff and anything like that. It can be, especially for a veteran player, it can really be a grind to get through this.
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference we noticed, normally you go into the locker room after practice and guys are sticking around and there's a bunch of conversation. We went in the day and it's like everyone is gone. It's like a ghost town. Quick to get out, in and out. And at this point, your body's just hurting too.
Well, yeah, because it's why when you look at a guy like Sealer and you see what these games, quote, mean, and you're still blocking shots and doing stuff like that. That's just...
He's an impressive guy.
Well, yeah, that's just something inside you that you have to, every game's got to be played like it means getting to the playoffs like that. So you really do get a lot of respect, especially from a coaching staff when you can play like that in games like this.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great example of someone like Tyson Foerster, who at this point in the season gets his first hat trick in Madison Square Garden against the Rangers. A really cool moment. Bradshaw just spoke a lot about him. And it was really cool, Shaw talking about when he took him off the penalty kill. What a big deal that was, and how Tyson didn't speak to him for a month because of it. He was so mad about it. And I really like this coaching nugget from Shaw. It's like, I felt like I didn't want to just hand this over to Tyson Foerster on a silver platter, that he should be on this PK. I want him to watch. I want him to learn. And I think we all can agree it worked.
Yeah, it did. I mean, he's always been, at least for me, watching him the last couple of years here. And I know I always get some, when you get reactions on social media, whatever, I've said a couple of times, I think he's their smartest player.
Yeah. Where
he's going. And you don't have to, there's a difference between having a skill level and setting guys up like Michkov, but then there's where you're supposed to go smart. Mm-hmm. There's hockey smart in fundamentals. Like you can drive a line without having the puck by going to a certain place and opening things up somewhere else. Forster, for me, watching him develop as a player, he goes to those spots and he opens up the ice for other people, not necessarily with a great high-end offensive skill level. We've seen his shot, but just dragging people with him, opening things like that, and going to that right spot or being there to have an assist on something that comes the other way. So I think he's really cemented himself as a really important part of this thing going forward.
Right. We talk about guys that you can build around. He is certainly one of those. We talk about top six and what the Flyers still need. You can pencil him into those two top lines, especially 20 goals last season, 23 goals so far this year. The next step for him, I'm sure the Flyers want to see him get closer to 30. Yeah. But Shaw talked a lot about him being a great 200-foot player. That we know he has that shot. And I remember his rookie year, that's all we talked about was that shot. I feel like he's developed greatly into being just more consistent all around, especially his defensive play.
Oh, absolutely. And I think he takes great pride in it, to play. Like, you don't get much out. I mean, he's not like the most talkative guy.
Sure. Our intermission interviews are electric.
Yeah, but you can tell he's a smart hockey guy. I think he's one of those guys, if you really wanted to talk X's and O's, which we don't do here, no. he would really get into that on where you're supposed to be and stuff like that. But he seems to be, there are guys that are easy to play with you're on their line. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's playing with really skilled players is difficult. You have to be in the right place. But then there's the guy that you can just depend on when you make a mistake, he can kind of be an eraser. Defensemen obviously do that, but sometimes it's a guy in your line that can erase a mistake by going in and aggressively maintaining control of the puck or something like that. And he does that.
Yeah. And they talked a lot about, at least Shaw has, and really a lot of people, about that specific line of Bobby Brink, Noah Cates, Tyson Foerster. And I challenge myself to think about next season, can that be a line that sticks? And with Tyson and Noah, I always say yes. Bobby's the one where I'm like, I don't know if that's going to stick quite yet.
Yeah, because there's games where you wonder about that.
Yeah.
I will say, though, his ability to play along the wall is a lot better than it was earlier. It looked like he was overmatched at times, and he's winning some battles there now. You can win battles by just positionally now.
Yeah.
He's not going to look. He's not going to. I mean, have trouble knocking you over. So at times, I think he's just a wee thing.
A wee thing.
To go in, but I mean, he's so smart, and he's got good leverage now,
Yeah.
and that's what you need. And there's a toughness to him that had to be brought out, and I think you're seeing that toughness to him. To me, the comparison would be, this is what they wanted to see from Frost.
Yeah.
And never did.
Yes. Great comparison.
This is where, okay, show me that you can do this, and we know you can. You carry,
got the skill.
Skills.
Yeah.
But show me you can do this, to then be able to use that skill. And he's showing that he can do that. And you see what happens when it all opens up. He has taken that challenge, and he's won that challenge.
Totally agree. That's a great example of where it works and it just doesn't work for someone else. And speaking of that, Bradshaw just talked a lot about the comparison of Artemi Panarin to Columbus and what happened there, because it was a question asked, can your wingers get better if you have a strong centerman? And how hard is it to grade your wingers right now because you don't have any center depth right now? And Shaw was honest that they don't have the depth, they don't have the skill at center. And while Artemi Panarin isn't a centerman, he made the comparison when Artemi Panarin went to Columbus, how much better they got. And then when he left, how much you missed his presence. And he's basically said, like, that's what the Flyers need, is a presence like that.
And they've got Michkov, and you can develop, like even Toronto's got Marner. I mean, there are guys that can play like a centerman from a wing.
Yeah.
Michkov will be like that, but you can't. You got to have something in the middle.
Well, how do you judge even these guys?
It's hard. Yeah. It's like you mentioned Cates. I mean, Cates is a terrific player, but you're asking him to play up two lines sometimes in terms of number one centerman, or your matchups that you have all the time, the creativity. And when you have that creativity, it's why last week we mentioned that Tippett's great assist to Palin. That's important because it opens things up for other people. But that should be a center.
Yeah.
That's sort of doing that, and that's why we look at you look at Luchenko. If he's going to be a guy like that, whoever they draft this year, if they go and get a free agent, somebody that can be into that role, it does affect everybody else on the ice. Look, it's no secret. It's why it's any sport. People will say, how can that guy make $10 million or $14 million? Because it makes everybody better.
Yes.
Because
such a needed thing.
It's a huge thing. It's like, it's what drove, not to pound on Frost at times, but it's what drove me crazy. If I was his agent, I would have been saying, my God, you could make a fortune here. Yeah. Just, be that guy. Yeah. And you've got opportunities. But if you get a centerman like that, it can help like all of a sudden you're 20 goal scorer, maybe a Tippett, maybe a whomever. All of a sudden that 20 goes to 25, 26, 27. God forbid it's a guy that can engineer a power play. You're talking a huge difference. So, I mean, that's where I think they have to make some quick addition.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very much needed hole right now in the Flyers organization. And I think when we talk about how you get energy for these games, that's the hardest part, is you see this team kind of just puzzle together right now. And you're wondering at this point, what is this going to look like next year? Who's going to stick, who's not? Like Jacob Pelche is a great example. We just talked about him in the press conference, how they aren't still really sure what they have. I think that's the hardest thing for this team right now and I think that's honestly what you play for right now. Is these are the last couple of games with this team the way it is, most likely.
Yeah, we want to see. I mean, with him, it's like, did he really get a chance with? We just mentioned not having guy to set up.
I don't think so.
Set up or
I'd like
whatever.
to see another look at him.
Yeah, and see what you got. I mean,
and he's gotten better.
Yeah, there's supposed to be eyes that are better than ours that are looking from their.
You'd hope so.
That are going from their coaching position to see what they really have here, the inner game, so to speak. But you can tell at certain points, like there's something there. But does he fit into this combination of guys? And who are they going to bring in? And I'm really curious how they're going to be patient with some of these kids they have, because all of a sudden everybody knows these kids. Yeah. And that's rare in hockey, in the United States, to know the names of the kids coming up. So when we come back in the fall, when their rookie camp or their development camp, whatever you want to call it, it's going to be like, oh, is he ready? Is this Bonk ready? Is Bunk ready? Is the Bump ready? Is Bonk, all the B's? Are they all ready?
I fear for myself in 3 games.
Are they all ready? What do you got coming here? So we'll see what they do. But it's a guy like, that's why going into these last games, a guy like that, they could make a big impression at the end of the year.
Yeah, I got to think. I mean, I go back to last rookie development camp where we talked so much about Luchenko and Bonk, and it was to the point where, like, you thought they were ready. Like, you were making a case for them to be ready. One more year, like, they got to be ready next year.
I don't know. Defensemen take a long time, and you don't want to bring them in and overwhelm them.
Yeah.
That's why no matter when they speak, whether it's Danny Briere or Jonesy, they want to pump the brakes.
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
I get why.
It's like they're driving that.
But to a fan, it's like, let's go. What are we waiting for?
What are we waiting for? When it's, they want to take their time with their kids coming up. But there's no doubt. I mean, I watched the kid at Western Michigan bump, but I'm like, he's 20-something, 22 draft. Maybe we'll see what he's got. I'll give him a chance. When they come back to make the team, it's almost like Luchenko, where you have to make it so that it's impossible to say no. Yeah. If it's kind of iffy, it's okay. We're going to be safe.
They're always going to go down the third.
If you have to come in, and it's which is why it should be such a high intensity situation early in the training camp here, because whoever thinks they can make a case to stay has to it's got to be a really, really loud case.
Yeah, no, it's got to be obvious to everyone. Yeah. And I think Luchenko was pretty close to that last year. And we would watch him and be like, oh my gosh, this guy's the skill set is light and day.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
That's what's got to be made.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. A lot going on with this Flyers organization, that's for sure, as there are only a couple games left. That is South Philly Sauce and Audacy Original, brought to you by 94 WIP and Jack Daniels. We'll see you next week.